everybody! It recently came to my attention that of all the sausage and snack stick recipes I've posted, I've yet to do a classic pepper stick. Well, that changes today. I'm making these great smoked pepper sticks that everyone's gonna love. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at the spices that I'm going to be using today. And I'm making a 10-pound batch, which is about 4¼ kilos. And I'm going to start with 90 grams of plain salt. And that's just a hair above 2% salt content. And this is 11 grams of Pink Cure number 1. And I use that at a rate of 1.1 grams per pound of meat, or 2.4 grams per kilo. And that's about 1 teaspoon per 5 pounds of meat. Now this contains the sodium nitrite that's going to kill any harmful bacteria that wants to grow in that meat mix. This is 120 grams of non-fat powdered milk. This is a binder, it's optional, but it does improve the texture of your sausage. That little protein boost will help you get a nice tightly bound grain, and it'll also help that mix grab on and bind to the casing. Casings that pull away from the sausage are really unsightly and throw off the texture of the sausage. When you can feel that casing rolling around in your mouth apart from the meat, it's just tragic, and you'll end up hiding away and eating that one alone with the shame that you can't share your precious sausage with the world. Now, apart from the salt and the cure, you can get as wild and crazy as you want with the spices, and that is the beauty of making your own. And I always weigh all of my ingredients, and this is the reason why. Here is 1 gram of marjoram, and that just so happens to be exactly 1 teaspoon. This is also 1 gram of marjoram, but that was nearly 2 teaspoons. So you can see that volumetric measurements like cups and spoons don't always tell the whole story, but the weight never lies. Now let's take a look at the flavoring spices I'm using today, and I'm keeping this one classic and basic. So I've got 15 grams of coarse ground black pepper. This is 10 grams of onion powder. I've got another 10 grams of garlic powder. And normally I would use 10 grams of cayenne pepper, but this isn't cayenne. This is some kind of blazing hot pepper. Not really sure what kind. The package just says extra hot red pepper. And boy, they ain't lying. So I'm actually using a little less than 10 grams in this one, because this batch is for sharing. If you want a really fiery one, check out my Reaperoni recipe on the channel. That one is meant to light you up. And we're also going to need a little bit of liquid to help with mixing and pushing it through the stuffer. So I've got 250 milliliters, which is about 1 cup, of ice cold water. And I'll also dissolve the cure in the water to kind of help that distribute really nice and evenly. So I'll get all of my spices and the salt and powdered milk. I'll mix those all together. I'll leave the cure and the water aside for now. And now, let's check out the meat. So I've got some beef here today, and this is some pretty lean bottom round. Of course, wild game is going to work perfectly here. For my money, deer and elk make the absolute best snack sticks. But we're just going store-bought today, and I've got this lean beef, and I'm gonna need to add in some fat. And I like to keep my sausages right around 30% fat. So this is 7 pounds of that round, and I'm gonna be adding in 3 pounds of fat. And this is some pork belly, and I've also got some scraps that I've been saving up. Always save your scraps because this is expensive and this is just a byproduct of dinner. Now I know that 3 to 7 is not exactly 30%, but as long as you're within a range, you're going to be fine. And you could go probably as low as 25% fat and up to about 40% fat. If you get any lower, it's going to be very lean, and that sausage is going to be pretty tough, almost jerky-like. And if you go really high on the fat, it's going to be nice and soft, but it's going to get pretty greasy. So 30% works out just right for me. And this is all a little bit frozen, so I'll get this all nice and chunked up into bits small enough for my grinder, and then we'll grind this up. And now for the arduous and tedious task of mixing this sausage. And this stuff is very, very cold, so some cotton liners under your gloves is gonna be a real lifesaver for your hands. Otherwise, this can be extremely painful. Someday I might get a mixer, but I like to keep the channel mostly about home-style sausage making and cooking, and not a lot of people have a meat mixer at home. But someday I might get tired of this. Now I'll get my cure mixed in with the water here, get all of it in there. That is very important stuff. Pour that all around. And now I'm gonna mix this for as long as I can really stand it. A good 10-15 minutes until this gets really, really tacky and sticky. It's been at least 10 minutes, and now this stuff is ripping my gloves off. It's sticking really hard to my fingers now, so that looks like it's just about ready. But I'll give it a little more. And now this goes out into the refrigerator overnight to let the cure work its magic, and I grab onto a hot cup of cocoa to warm up my frozen fingers.
The next morning.
Sausage Sunday, and I'm getting a nice early start because we don't get a lot of daylight hours around here in the winter time. Now, this has been out in the refrigerator overnight. That's given the cure time to do its thing, and it's also given the spices time to kind of open up and spread around nice and evenly. So what I'm gonna do is fry up a little test patty so I can check the seasoning before I get this into the casings and it's too late. Check out that bite. It's very good. It's very good. The salt is right where I want it. It's not real salty. It tastes like how you'd season your steak or your burger. Good level of spice. I would like a little more heat, but I always want a little more heat. So I think this one is just about right for sharing. Now, let's lock and load and crank this sausage out. to the sausage closet once again. I'm going to begin by giving these a 1 hour hang here at room temperature with a little fan going on low to circulate some air around these. And what I'm doing here is giving that meat inside the casing some time to hydrate that casing, and that's going to help us make sure that the casing really adheres to the meat. And I'm also drying the outside of the casing because that is going to help these soak up some of that great smoke flavor. After an hour in the sausage closet, it's time to move these things out into the smoker, and I'm doing things a little differently today. Normally, I bring them out and I put them into a 110 degree Fahrenheit smoker with no smoke, no water in the water pan. I let them continue to hang for an hour to keep on drying these casings out even further. But some of you have told me that you've experienced problems with tough casings. And one of the reasons can be holding the sausage at low temperature for too long. So, since these collagen casings don't require any pre-soaking, they're already nice and dry coming out of the sausage closet. So today, I'm going directly into a smoky 140 degree Fahrenheit smoker. I do have the water in the water pan, and I'll smoke these at 140 degrees for 2 hours. Then I'll come out here, I'll bump the temperature up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and continue to smoke those for at least 2 hours, but maybe a little more, depending on how they look after 2 hours. And once they get to looking how I like them to be looking, I'll bump the temperature up one more time to 180 to finish cooking these off. All right. Well, after 2 hours at 140, they're taking on that great red color from the smoke. And now I'm going to bump this up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll continue to smoke these for another couple of hours, maybe even more than that. I'll just kind of keep an eye on them, and when they get a little wrinkly from the top to the bottom, that's right about where I like them. And this is also the time when I'm going to start monitoring the temperature, so I'll get this probe down into one of these guys, and I'll just keep an eye on them. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. That's where I like mine. Of course, you could feel free to dry yours out further, but that's good for me. So now I'm going to bump this thing up to 180 degrees. I'm going to cook these things to an internal temperature of 155, and that's not going to take very long because they're already at about 148. And then a quick dip into an ice bath to stop the cooking, and we'll be just about done. Oh yeah. Look at those beauties. Now get them down to that ice. Pulling these things out at the right temperature and getting them cooled down quick is really, really important when you're making these. You want to make sure to pull these things somewhere between 152 to 160. And definitely do not get up to 180 degrees, because at that point, the fat in the sausage is going to melt and run out of there, and it'll absolutely ruin your sausage. Now I'm going to leave these in here for 10-15 minutes or so until that core gets nice and cool. And I'll take them out, hang them up in the sausage closet until they're dry, and I'll pop them in the refrigerator, and we'll try these out tomorrow. And now it's finally time to see how we did. Check out that bite. Oh yeah. Boy, that really hits the mark. It's got a ton of great flavor with the pepper and the smoke right out front. Now there's a little heat coming on. Ooh, that is a little spicier than I figured, but that's perfectly fine with me. And it's not enough that anyone's gonna get upset about it. Let's take a look inside. Oh yeah, perfect. You can see the nice grain there. You can see some pepper bits in there, and the nice little fatty bits are still intact, and that's just what you're looking for. Yeah, that's a great stick. The casings, they got a nice snap to them, but they're not tough at all. Really good. So, make sure to look around on the channel for a lot of other great snack stick recipes. But if you're looking for that classic smokehouse pepper stick flavor, give this one a try, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah.